The unspoken truth about parenting and the so-called 101 rules that supposedly make you a trophy-worthy parent is that it's all a hoax, an illusion of perfection that isn't truly attainable. The pressure to follow a rigid blueprint often leads to more guilt than growth, making parents feel like they are constantly falling short. But in reality, parenting isn't about flawlessly checking off a list. It's about adapting, learning, and doing your best with the circumstances at hand. Every child is different, every situation is unpredictable, and no rule book can account for the nuances of real life challenges. The moment we stop chasing an impossible standard and start embracing the messy, imperfect reality, we become the kind of parents our children actually need. As with many other aspects of life, everything in parenting is touch and go. You never truly know if you're adequately catering to the needs of your children, especially if you have more than one, because, believe it or not, they will remember their childhoods differently. What one child sees as love and sacrifice, another might see as neglect or favoritism. And so often, you'll be surprised to find that despite your best efforts to go above and beyond, what sticks with them is how you fell short. If you're lucky, they'll express it gentle, sparing your feelings, but it's still their truth, the way they experienced and remembered your parenting. That realization can be heartbreaking, but it's also a reminder that parenting isn't about perfection. It's about presence, effort, and the willingness to learn from your mistakes. In the end, what matters most is that they knew they were loved, even if they didn't always understand it at the time. Quite often, your every decision will be made with them at the forefront of your mind. For example, you might stay in a relationship or seek out one because you want to offer them stability. Truth be told, if you had just asked them, they would have told you they were far better off with one single caring, loving parent than the dysfunction you made them endure. All in the name of what's best for them. And let's be real, half the time, they were probably just waiting for you to figure it out. Kids may be small, but their side eyes and size speak volumes. You thought you were shielding them from chaos, but they were probably placing bets on when you'd finally read the room. Then years later, they hit you with, "Yeah, I always knew that relationship was a mess," leaving you wondering why nobody warned you. But hey, at least they got some solid material for their future therapy sessions. It's really not funny to think that we introduce trauma into their lives when our only intent should be to create an inclusive, nurturing environment that fosters growth and mental fortitude. Two things can be true. You can be doing harm while genuinely trying to do good. Sometimes the very thing we believe are protecting them are the things that leave the deepest scars. We teach them to be strong but forget that strength isn't just about enduring. It's about being safe enough to be vulnerable. And while we're busy making sacrifices for their sake, they're in the background wondering why those sacrifices always seem to come with so much stress. Kids aren't fooled. They know when peace is performative. You might think you're raising them in a warm, loving environment, but if you listen closely, you might just hear them practicing their "I had a very interesting childhood" speech for future dinner talks. In the back of our minds, we want to be acknowledged as outstanding parents. But by whose standard? To John Public, you might look like a superb parent, but to those whose opinions count the most, they'll happily remind you of all the ways you got it wrong. But all hope is not lost. If you truly did your best, there will also be that little tick-tick of reassurance, reminding you that you did well enough to raise productive, responsible, empathetic human beings. Of course, they might still blame you for minor childhood traumas, like making them leave the company of their friends too soon or enforcing bedtime. And let's not forget the classic, "I'm never going to parent like you did" speech, only for them to turn around years later and sound exactly like you. If you're lucky, they'll give you a little credit in between therapy sessions. But hey, at least they'll have good stories to tell their kids about how you were the reason they turned out so well, or so they claimed. There will be times when they hand you that parenting trophy only to snatch it back the moment you slip up. Brace yourself for the double-edged sword that will swing your way from time to time. One day, you're their hero. The next, you're the villain who ruined their childhood because you wouldn't let them have sleepovers or buy name brand items they liked. Without the opportunity to be a parent, you might assume that raising kids is about love, guidance, and the occasional life lesson. But in reality, it's also about being held accountable for things you didn't even know were offenses. Like that time you gave one child a bigger slice of cake, unknowingly setting off a sibling rivalry that will be discussed for years. Or when you sacrificed everything to give them a good life, only for them to say, "Yeah, but you never bought me that toy I wanted when I was 5. Just remember, parenting is a long game. If you do it right, they'll thank you. Probably around the time they have kids of their own and realize you weren't so bad after all. Parenting is a lifelong commitment, one that demands more of you than you ever thought possible. It will stretch you, humble you, and force you to confront parts of yourself you didn't even know existed. You will sacrifice time, energy, and pieces of yourself that may never fully return in the same way. But parenting isn't just about raising children. It's about growing alongside them. It's about learning that you won't always have the right answers, and sometimes the best you can do is listen, apologize, and try again. It's understanding that love isn't just in the big sacrifices, but in the everyday moments, the late night talks, the unwavering presence, the quiet reassurances when words fail. There will be times when they question your choices, just as there will be times when you question them yourself. But if you've built a foundation of love, trust, and respect, they will carry that with them long after they've outgrown your arms, even if they don't always say it out loud. Because at the end of it all, it was never about being the perfect parent. It was about being their parent, the one who showed up, who tried, who loved them even when they didn't see it. And while they may not hand you a trophy that stays on the shelf forever, the real prize is knowing that in the ways that mattered most, you did enough. And that, despite your mistakes, they knew deep down that they were always loved.
Like, share, comment, and subscribe for more episodes. Thank you for watching and continue to rise and excel.